everybody, to the Courageous Truth Podcast. As always, I am honored that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with me today. Man, I'll tell you what. Honestly, I'm really having a great time watching our Democratic brothers and sisters get exposed. I'm just loving how the January 6th thing is just imploding on itself. The fact that if you even believe at this point that the January 6th was an actual insurrection, that it was an actual attempt to actually overthrow the actual government, is ridiculous. You can't believe that anymore. You just can't believe it anymore. And so I'm just loving watching the fact that what we knew all along is true. With Hunter Biden's laptop, we knew it was true, and now it's been proven it's true. And Joe Biden, and this was a couple of weeks ago, and everybody knows this, but this guy pardons his son. Why would he need to be pardoned if he was innocent? He needs to be pardoned because he's so guilty, and he was pardoned of 10 years of crimes. And, part of me says, you know what, the leftist, man, they abused that poor guy so much, he might as well escape with something. But it proves that everything that we knew to be true was actually true, that there were FBI informants. Stephen A. Smith is talking about it on his podcast, that sports commentator. He is talking about it, and he's talking about how he's sick of the Democratic lies. They're unraveling. There's no way they could have kept up that narrative for so long. Nowadays, if you believe the lie of the mainstream media and the mainstream politicians and bureaucrats, you're basically admitting is you don't want to admit to the truth. You don't want to talk about the truth. You don't want to know the truth. It feels good that people are being held accountable, that people are now being put in places where they have to answer for their evil deeds. And we're seeing that with what's happening to Puff Daddy or whatever his name was. And people are now being named, and a lot of people are now being associated with things that happened at this guy's home or his events or his lifestyle. And it's just that part is a sigh of relief, let's say, because we just wondered if they were going to cover it up forever. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the first year of this new incoming administration, if Donald Trump is actually going to release tapes, and he's actually going to release lists, and he's actually going to let the American public know what's going on. But what I really want to talk about today is I kind of want to get practical with everybody. This is the Courageous Truth Podcast, and it exists to help with conflicting ideologies and help us navigate those things. And it seems to me almost that there has been like a sigh of relief that the fight that we had as conservatives, as followers of Jesus, as Republicans, we've kind of almost breathed a sigh of relief and put our feet up, because the fight was so intense. It was on every level, every front, every level of citizenry. It was all over social media. It was all over in the streets, in the coffee shops. It was everywhere. We've almost breathed a sigh of relief because it's like we won. We have the White House. We have the House. We have the Senate. We have the Supreme Court. This is just, a great day. And it's almost like we're putting our foot off the gas and just relaxing. We're not sending the texts as much. We're not paying as close attention, where we feel that weight has been lifted off our shoulders, and rightfully so. But it is not time to put down our arms. It is, in fact, time to sharpen our swords. It is, in fact, time to pick up all of our instruments of warfare and get ready for what's coming next. I want to read, and then I have a couple practical thoughts too, is I want to read a snippet, a piece, a paragraph from an article from Harbinger's Daily, and you can find that at harbingersdaily.com or .org. Dan Bowen wrote this article, and it's a great article. On November 25th, he wrote this, and it rings true almost a month later, probably even more so a month later. But it's an article entitled "American Christians, Be Careful Not to Let Your Guard Down After Victory." And I think that this is so important. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I am going to read just a little portion of it. And it's kind of bullet pointed, not time to cease from action. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to just read this in its entirety, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. The return of Christ is always presented in Scripture as a great motivation to action, not as a reason to cease from action. In 1 Corinthians 15:58, Paul teaches on the rapture. He says, always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord. In Thessalonians 5:6, Paul concludes a lesson on Christ's coming with these words. So then, let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be alert and self-controlled. To retreat or to ease up was never Jesus' intention for us. Instead, we work while we can, as Scripture commands. Night is coming when no one can work, John 9:4 says. Until then, we must stay focused on our calling and on our commission. The apostles and every generation since have lived and served with the idea that Jesus could return within their lifetime. Imagine what would happen if any generation had ceased their labor and just waited. They would have disobeyed Christ's command to go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation, Mark 16:15. The fruit of that approach would have been slowing down or absence of spreading the good news, the gospel. The apostles understood that Jesus' imminent return meant that they must busy themselves with God's work. They lived their lives as if every day were their last. We too should view every day as a gift and use it to glorify God. We have been entrusted with the truth of who Jesus is and what he has done. That is a tremendous privilege and a responsibility. Now, I understand not everybody that listens that holds Christian values that listens to this podcast, and that's just fine. This is where I get my motivation from. But I want to give us some practical steps in this hour to be able to engage with what is happening all around us. Now, we have to understand, especially if you are a follower of Jesus, that the witness of the gospel, the spiritual warfare is all being played out in front of the world to see it. And social media has a big influence on that fact that we have cameras everywhere we go. Nothing is so much hidden anymore. It's hard to hide things, but we do see the playing field, and that is one of the advantages of living in a kind of a techie society where we can see things that are happening instantaneously. We can connect with people all over the world in an instant. Videos go viral. You can take a video of something, it can go around the world in just a matter of seconds. What that does give us is it gives us a heightened awareness of what's going on, a heightened awareness of where the spiritual battle is taking place and where the mission field is. And the mission field, everything right now, especially in America, is political. That's the season we're in as a nation. And we can either hide from that or we can engage with that. And I think it's important that we engage with that. Everything's political. Everything is political. In fact, politics are a good thing. Politics are how we function and how we organize and how we live our lives and how we engage with society, engage with the culture around us in the church, in any organization, in a business. There are politics. Politics are good. American politics has just made the word politics a bad word in so many ways. But I want to talk about steps of engagement. And the first step of engagement, now I want to think about where you're at. Now, we have to engage in what's happening. We just do. We can't just go out and like we have to engage in what's going on in our communities. The spiritual need in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our state, and in our nation requires the gospel to bring about its resolution. That's just the fact of it all. We need the gospel in every area of the public square to bring things to a place of health, to bring things to a place of healing. People want to get healed in this season in America. We're going to have to go and navigate through some kind of political wormhole, I guess, so to speak, or some kind of political door, because politics has just dug its fingers into everything, especially into morality. Science is political. Thinking is political. Money is political. Everything is political. Health, especially, is political. And we need to engage in those. So the first thing that I want you to do, wherever you're at, whatever your position is, so you know a little bit about me, I believe very much in the grassroots. I'm not interested in being a party politician. I'm not interested in running for any kind of office at this point. I'm just not interested. What I am interested in doing is talking to my neighbors, engaging everyone around me on that grassroots kind of citizenry level so that we can make some change, because that's where the real power is. The real power is at the grassroots. You get into the upper party politics and really just just becomes a struggle. Not interested in that. I'm interested in the power of we the people. So the first thing we need to do is we need to be aware. What's going on in your school board? You should know this. What's going on in your county? And you can apply this to anywhere you want in the nation. I speak from Washington State, but what's going on in our state? What's going on in legislative sessions? What's going on in our school boards? What's going on our county councils? What's going on in our district, in our precinct? What's going on? What's happening at county boards? What's going on in city commissions? What's going on everywhere? Being aware of what is happening. That can be overwhelming. That can be daunting. That's why we need each other. Okay. Everything rises and falls at local political level. Okay. We want to make changes. We can't go up to the top. We have to start at the bottom and rebuild from the grassroots. I can't say that enough. And in order to do that, we have to be aware of what's happening. We have to be aware. That means we have to do research. We have to spend some time getting aware of what's going on. Like I said before, I'm in Washington. I go to Family Policy Institute of Washington. Their Defenders app has everything at the touch of a button right there on the app. And I follow it. I'll put the link to that app below. It's easy for me in Washington because I can just find everything right from that app. Going to the legislative the Washington State legislation or Secretary of State website can be daunting and boring and very tedious. That's why I like this app. But just being aware of what's going on and weeding out the political theater, weeding out the things that don't really matter so much and being able to discern those things. What really matters is laws that are being made. What really matters is taxes that are being raised. What doesn't matter is really how the governor's behaving or how some of these high-ranking politicians are behaving and what they're doing. Knowing what's theater, what are they doing to just kind of as smoke and mirrors, and what actually affects us. And knowing those things. They want to pass certain legislation. Well, it's got to go through a process. They want to pass a law. It's got to go through a process. That's where we intercept it as the people. So number one is awareness. Be aware of what's going on. Number two is conversation. Who's your sounding board? Let me ask you this. Who is your sounding board? Who in your neighborhood or who in your family is your sounding board that you discuss these things with, that you process these things with, that you can go and help weed out all the bad, unhelpful ideas and the unhelpful portions of conversation so that you can really get to the root of whatever the issue is, be it taxes, be it something in the school board, whether it be a moral issue, a spiritual issue, an issue with your community, you name it. Who's your sounding board? And, who are you going out to coffee with? Who are you dialoguing these things with out in public? Who are you talking with that is a like-minded person? Are you talking with a like-minded person? Do you have one on your cell phone? Do you have people that you get to coffee with or you get on phone calls or you're texting with that you can process through some of these things? That's very, very important. It's conversation. We've got to have conversation about these things. And conversation is the best way where we can be informed and stay informed and find out what's true and what's just smoke and mirrors. And that leads into really 2B. But the third thing is we need community. Who are you engaging with? Who are you supporting? Who's supporting you? Do you have a Bible study group where you can talk about current events? Do you have a small group at your church? Do you have people that you're meeting and praying with these issues over? Or if you're not a believer, you're not a person of prayer, someone that you're dialoguing with, multiple people, and coming up with plans and coming up with ways to help engage in the process, because the time for apathy and non-engagement is over. Like we don't have that choice. So having a community of people. So if you're really, really passionate about homeschool and you feel like this is the area I need to focus in, because let me say this, you can't focus on everything. You can't legislate and you can't fight homeschool things. You have to kind of pick your playing field. But do you have people that you're having conversations with, that you're actively in community with on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that you're in this homeschool support group, or maybe it's a medical issue? I know the bureaucracy of medical issues in healthcare system can be daunting and overwhelming. Maybe, you're sick or someone has cancer or are you around those people to not only navigate, but to make the proper change? The more community that you have that is um, that you're steady with, that you're consistent with, the more people you're going to get to meet to really really make change. Because what happens is little tiny community groups pop up, and then everybody's networking together. And when you have healthy networking, you can make healthy change. You can make healthy propositions to make that change, so on and so forth. So you need to be aware. You need to be in conversation. Of course, you need to be in community. And then finally, or not finally, there's two more, is follow up. Are you following up with what you say you're going to do? This is going to be one of the most important things. I have committed to engaging in the legislative session over the next couple weeks, that's coming up in January. Okay. I need to make sure that I'm following through. So what I have to do is maybe I have to wake up a little bit early so I can get to the gym and then get to the office. So before my day starts, I can spend time engaging in this process before, some of the realities of my day hit. I'm not a full-time politician or legislator, so I need to carve out time, and I don't want to take time away from my family, so I have to do it early in the morning. But making sure that I'm following through, like if you follow me at all, I try to keep people around Washington via social media aware of different legislation that's happening, different things that are going on, making sure that I'm following through. Okay, so if I make a commitment that I'm going to speak at a certain legislative session, make sure I'm following through, make sure I show up. Don't just talk about it, but actually doing what we said we're going to do, because I owe that to you. And I owe that to my neighbor, and I owe that to my wife, and I owe that to my kids, and I owe that to the people that I'm in community with, and I owe that to people I'm having conversation with, and I owe that to the fact that I'm aware. If you're going to get aware with no activation, what's the point? You might as well just live under a rock and just I have and pretend it's not happening, just live in blissful ignorance. But that's almost rude and disrespectful. That's being an unresponsible citizen. And we need responsible citizens now. And then finally is understanding the personal responsibility. What is my role as a citizen? Do I understand my role as a citizen? Do I understand these things? Because if I understand those things, then the awareness is going to come easy. The conversations are going to come easy. The community is going to come easy. And the follow through is going to come easy. What is my role as a citizen? My role as a citizen is to engage in the voting process, to know what laws are taking place and speak out against the bad ones and support the good ones, and then having a good idea of what my neighborhood likes and wants. I have a responsibility to my neighbors to make sure things work out well for them too in the legislative sessions and in lawmaking and in taxes. We have a governor that wants to just raise taxes, and he's got a huge voter base that has bought into anything he says, and it seems like they're brainwashed. I live in Washington, King County. Go up to King County and you look at the people, and you engage with the people. There's almost like this glazed look that's over their face, like they're just living in blissful ignorance because they have been their lifestyle has been condoned. The way they live and the way they think has been condoned. I mean, the liberal woke mind virus is exactly that. It's a progressive virus that eats away at your soul, that eats away at your morality, that eats away at all these different aspects of what makes you a responsible person, and makes you really just angry. I mean, if you go and you watch some of these videos of college campuses protesting, they're so angry. And then they get close and interview them, like PragerU interviews them, and they don't know why they're angry. They don't know why they're shouting, but anger is contagious. Anger is contagious, and offense is contagious. So what happens is we have a whole portion of the citizenry that is offended by the fact that we don't want abortion. So they're offended by that. They're not just like, I don't agree. They're literally offended by that. They're offended. Why are they offended? The fact that we don't want to kill babies. I don't know. That has to come from somewhere. It comes from leadership that condones that way of thinking, that supports that way of thinking, that manufactures that way of thinking. Okay, like we children should be able to choose their gender. That's the fact that people buy into this is unbelievable. It's a brainwashing that's evil. It's a satanic brainwashing that comes through people who want to condone and manufacture that way of thinking. Who would think that a little boy could be a little girl, and then you would agree with that? You can't let your little kid take a bath by themselves. You can't let them make a sandwich by themselves, but you're going to let them choose your gender? and then people agree with that and think that you're normal, going back to the community issue, that's a number of reason why you need community, because you need people that are going to tell you that you have a stinking thinking, that you have a different way of the way you're thinking isn't correct. It isn't helpful in the Christian community. That's a sinful way of thinking that's going to lead to destruction. In the secular community, that maybe you're just a conservative that doesn't believe in Jesus. You still need the same thing. You still need someone to say, hey, that ideology bullet point isn't isn't healthy. We need that. We need that. So that's kind of the courageous truth of the whole thing. The reality is this: truth requires courage, but truth also requires energy. Truth also requires effort. Okay. And like, I'm just going to go through that again. Number one, make sure you're aware. Number two, make sure you're having conversations. Number three, make sure that you're in community with like-minded people. And number four, make sure that you follow through with what you say you're going to do, because that leads to number five, and that's personal responsibility. Take personal responsibility for the things you say, the things you're aware of, the conversations you have, the community that you have. And it's not even just personal responsibility, it's civic responsibility as well. So that's where I want to lead this. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Truth Podcast. As always, I'm just honored that you have chosen to spend a little time with me and you keep watching this podcast. Keep liking these shorts, keep subscribing. Almost to 200 subscribers. I didn't think I was going to get there that fast, but I really want to build this up. Hopefully after Christmas, I'll get some good interviews here, especially going into the legislative session, to just keep us aware of what's taking place, especially here in Washington. If you're not in Washington, find your people, find the organizations that are equipping people. Again, Washington State Family Policy Institute of Washington is probably one of the best organizations that keep us aware of what's happening in legislation and easy ways we can engage right from our phone. Right from our phone, we can watch the ball game and engage in legislation. That's how easy it is. So make sure you follow them, and make sure you're following us, and just continue to take a courageous stand for the truth. Now more than ever, we're about 30 days from inauguration. Now's not the time to relax. Now's the time to engage, and engage more than ever. We have a window here in America, I believe, that is not going to last very long. And in fact, the more engaged we are, the more effective this window of opportunity that we have. We can't just sit back and watch and just feel good about things that are happening. We still got to keep our leaders accountable. Donald Trump works for us. His administration works for us. We need to hold him accountable. We need to be in his ear. However, we need to do that. Speaking to his people, calling our Congress. We have the House and the Senate as well, and the White House. We need to take advantage of this. We don't need to sit back and relax. We need to get in the ear of our representatives and push through things that we know are going to keep our nation moving forward. This is not our opportunity to relax and celebrate. This is our opportunity to engage and rebuild. And the more citizenry that engages, the stronger the foundation we're going to build is going to be. We need to restore the foundation of our nation. So God bless you. Continue to take a courageous stand for the truth. Remember, truth requires courage. Be courageous today. I'll see you next time.